Good morning and welcome to this week's episode of the County Seat. I'm your host, Chad Booth. We're bringing you our episode today from Richfield, Utah, in the center of the state to accommodate our guest panel. Our subject today is going to be grazing on the Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument. To date, they've not had a unified grazing plan, but they are in the process of coming up with a grazing plan, and they've been in a scoping process. That is our topic today, and we will start with a little background of what they've come up with so far. Here with that report is Don Dunwell.
Let me make a few things about this proclamation clear. First, it applies only to federal lands, lands that belong already to the American people. Second, under the proclamation, families will be able to use this canyon as they always have. The land will remain open for multiple uses, including hunting, fishing, hiking, camping, and grazing.
In 1996, President Bill Clinton created the Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument by using the power of the Antiquities Act. That proclamation has created controversy that is still echoing almost 20 years later. The fight back then was over a coal mine.
While the Grand Staircase-Escalante will be open for many activities, I am concerned about a large coal mine proposed for the area. Mining jobs are good jobs, and mining is important to our national economy and to our national security. But we can't have mines everywhere, and we shouldn't have mines that threaten our national treasures.
The monument, of course, shut down any possibility for coal to be developed in the area, and today the fight has evolved, focusing on roads and livestock grazing, with ranchers feeling the threat of being removed from lands they've used for well over a century. The Bureau of Land Management is right in the middle of the debate, attempting to find balance amid all of the stakeholders. Since November of 2013, the BLM has been working on a plan amendment that would affect grazing on the Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument, a planning area that encompasses 2.2 million acres in Garfield, Kane, and Coconino counties, including areas within the Glen Canyon National Recreation Area. So far, the BLM has completed the scoping phase where they gathered information from the public about grazing on the monument. Last December, BLM held open houses where they introduced the public to a preview of preliminary draft alternatives for planning instead of waiting until the fall of 2015 when the draft environmental impact statement would be open for public comment.
This is a little interjection of an additional comment period for the public to get a look at the BLM planning effort. Something that is real important to the monument and to BLM is to increase the transparency of what's going on. And one of the ways that we're doing that is by releasing these preliminary alternatives to the public. By releasing the preliminary alternatives right now, we're trying to get it right before we go to that extra effort. Now, we don't have great analysis at this point. We have some preliminary analysis that we can share with the public and provide some of the outcomes of the alternatives.
Despite the increased transparency, some ranchers and local government officials are worried that changes to the plan could lead to an elimination of grazing on the monument altogether.
I think they've been trying to figure out a way to integrate what they're going to do with the monument grazing question into their regular planning process, which is for preservation, which is for basically to eliminate grazing. That's our main concern, and that's what we're going to work on to try to keep that from happening.
We received comments that a significant amount of comments that asked BLM to consider a no grazing alternative, and so we do have that built in as our range of alternatives as one of the outliers. On the other side, we had people comment, a lot of local folks comment that they'd like to see increased grazing and enhanced grazing on the monument, and so we also have that as the other bookend.
The preliminary alternatives are A, no action, which basically continues current use plans; B, which would discontinue livestock grazing on the monument; C, allows livestock grazing but emphasizes restoring native species of plants. Alternative D recognizes the historic and cultural significance of the livestock industry and focuses on healthy landscapes to support multiple use. Finally, Alternative E emphasizes sustainable use through livestock management designed to ensure that range health standards are both achieved and improved. You can find a link to the range of alternatives on our website under the posting for this episode of County Seat.
I think the BLM is doing a decent job of trying to represent the various values that would be involved with our grazing question or with the EIS as such as they go about revising it. So from a social and economic standpoint, I'd give them pretty high marks for having engaged people, that are in that business and have us all kind of gather to talk and share about it. Well, they're going through their procedural and their process steps. It's just a matter of us, picking our end of the rope up and tugging on that one as well.
The process is far from over, with the final decision slated for the fall of 2016. But there's still some time to comment on the preliminary alternatives that the BLM is previewing. The public comment period on those closes on the 20th of January, with another comment period opening when the draft environment impact statement is made available to the public in the fall. For the county seat, I'm Don Dunwell.
Thank you, Don, for that report. We are going to transition from what has happened so far to how it's happened and what the impacts of it might be with our guest panel right after this commercial break.
Get ready, set, jump! The day starts off at sunrise with the Cisco Disco. Come catch Cisco fish at Cisco Beach on the east side of Bear Lake. After the fishing, why not jump in the lake yourself? The Bear Lake Monster Polar Plunge starts at 11 a.m. at the Bear Lake State Park Arena. Gather your family and head north for a great cause. Visit bearlake.org for more information. Rich County, take the plunge.
You go through the day-to-day repeating what you did yesterday. Don't you wish you could access that piece of your life that's missing? Find the beauty, serenity, family fun, or anything else that's missing from your life in the Cedar City Bryan Head area. Gain access to your adventure, whether it's camping, hiking, the arts, festivals, or just a getaway. Visit cedarcityayl.com for details on all the adventures that you can access in scenic southern Utah.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah Valley? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls. Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River. No matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
Landscapes as diverse as the people who venture to find them await. All you have to do is find a place to begin. Moab, Utah, in Grand County, where adventure begins.
Welcome back to the county seat. Our topic today is grazing on the Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument. We are on neutral territory. We are bringing this from Richfield, Utah in Sevier County as all the parties came from across the state to make up this panel. Introducing our panel, David deRoulhac, who is the Utah Forest Associate for the Grand Canyon Trust, Matt Betenson, Assistant Monument Manager for Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument. That's a mouthful, Matt. And Del Lefevre, who is a Garfield County Commissioner and is wearing two hats today because he's also a rancher who grazes out on the monument. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
What prompted all of this?
Okay, so that's a very good question. If you, by way of background, we do have a national monument management plan in place. That's our land use plan, and that's BLM manages by plan. It's kind of a prescription on what you can and cannot do on these public lands. An aspect of that plan that addresses livestock grazing, there's a certain weakness in there. There was a plan decision when the monument was initially established, and in 2000 a plan was put in place, and there's a decision in there that identifies a process on how we should address livestock grazing, and it essentially comes out with individual allotment management plans. We've never gotten to that point. And in fact, we're not, current direction isn't that we should not be doing planning at that type of level. What we're doing now is we're taking a look at the use of livestock grazing on the monument, and we're trying to put in some allocation decisions. Currently our allocation decisions, because of what happened during our original planning process or allocation decisions are actually rooted back in the 1980s circa management framework plans. And the monument wasn't the monument at that time. It was a group of different field offices, BLM field offices at that time, and so each little field office had a different management tactic in this area, this region we now call Grand Staircase. And so that's why we need to bring forward these grazing decisions and put a legalistic framework to continue to authorize livestock grazing permits on the staircase.
Okay, and Del, that leads me to a question. You've been ranching out in this area for a long time. From the time prior to the monument to today, how much has grazing regulation changed for you?
On my allotments, it hasn't changed. It's about the same. But then I run a good allotment. I have a cowboy out there all the time, and sometimes 2 and 3. And so, and I run my operation on not AUMs, but on the grass or what's out there. In the fall of the year, I usually get with BLM. We go out and look around and say, okay, this thing won't handle 500 head this year. We're going to run 300 head. We're going to run 200 head, or we're going to run, up to the number. And so mine has it, and my allotment is in a lot better shape than when I got it years ago. And so the BLM don't really bother me a whole lot like some of the other guys, because if I've got a cow in the wrong place, we move her. We don't. And I haul water to distribute my cows. I don't necessarily use, I just shut the springs. I've got them where I can handle them. Except out on the last chant, it's a different deal out there. But the one right out of Escalante, it's a lot better allotment when I got it.
And Dave, just by way of introduction, the Grand Canyon Trust, if somebody's just watching the show and they're going, well, what does grazing on a mountaintop in Utah have to do with the Grand Canyon Trust? What's the interest and stake of the trust in this entire process?
Well, the trust is organization that works to preserve environmental and ecological values on the landscape, but also does so in a way that's sustainable for communities that are there. And I think we have an interest. Our membership has an interest in the Grand Staircase. It's one of America's most special places, and one of the first ones that the BLM was given the responsibility to manage. And getting to the grazing, a new grazing plan. Really, the monument doesn't have a grazing plan, and a lot of the way that grazing is managed now goes back to what Matt referred to as the old 80s management framework plans prior to when the monument was established. And so, getting a new grazing plan will help to square a lot of the values and objects for which the monument was established with grazing, and can hopefully do so in a way that allows for sustainable grazing and protects environmental values and other values on this shared landscape.
Do you see that there's a conflict between your goals and ranchers' goals?
Well, I think that I think that there's conflicts with grazing as far as recreation, with environmental degradation, things like that can happen if things are overgrazed. So I think that there can be. I don't think there always has to be. I think that there are areas out there that have problems, and that's what's exciting about a new grazing plan, is that it can start to resolve some of those issues that the current grazing plan, or there is no grazing plan, so the current grazing regulations that are from the 80s don't actually resolve. And so a new grazing plan that's why this process, getting more public input, more public discussion around this with a variety of stakeholders, is really an important process.
Okay, let me ask you the same question.
Okay, I'm scared to death of these EISs. These EISs is done, the public does them. When the public does it, the norm public don't understand an EIS. And they hold a public hearing in Salt Lake. They get all their little friends and people out. And so I'm scared of an EIS, because every time we have an EIS, the ranchers seem to lose. And so, and I know it's a process, but it's a painful process for us cowboys, because you never know what we're going to come at. And I can just, from years back, I mean, when we was left alone, we could take care of our allotments. We could get rid of these PJs. PJs is running us off the range. And some of these old reseeds have been done in the 50s, and now it's just PJs in there. I mean, we have to treat these allotments like it's like it's good things, because you can do good things out there. And right now, everything's in turmoil. We don't know what we're going to have next.
For a point of clarification for our audience, I do want to take just a moment and say an EIS is an environmental impact statement, and a PJ is a pinyon juniper tree, which sucks a lot of water off the range. Is that
right?
That's your primary problem with it?
Yeah.
And that's part of the process that BLM has to go through to make a grazing plan. But Del, I think that's one of the great things about the process is that we can have a lot of these discussions through the process, and there's a lot of opportunity for public input. The BLM has done a great job of engaging the public in this process. They've done some unique things, and
and if you don't mind, David, yeah, absolutely, and that's why we've been really focused on engaging the public through this entire process. We know there's a lot of controversy associated with livestock grazing on public lands and within Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument specifically. What we're trying to do is kind of find the common ground between what we have for laws and regulations and what we can do for good monument resources as well, and look to see what kind of flexibility BLM has, and these gentlemen are both helping us find that common ground.
Okay, I do have a follow-up question for you, but we're running a little bit short towards the break, so we're going to take a break here from the county seat. We are talking about grazing on the Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument. A grazing plan is now in process to come up with a unified grazing plan across the monument. And we will pick up our conversation with our panel when we come back. You're watching The County Seat right here on ABC4. You have a moment during this commercial break. Let your friends know to tune in and follow this conversation. We'll be right back.
There is a place where young and old make connections, where kids feel like grown-ups, and grown-ups feel like kids. There is a place where beauty arises in contrast, where wonder is universal, and laughter second nature. There is a place where friends find a future, families find each other, and feelings find their home. There is a place.
Let's be honest, you don't know much about Beaver County. Well, let me tell you about it. It's the birthplace of outlaw Butch Cassidy and adventurer Philo T. Farnsworth. Some of the best skiing in Utah is at Eagle Point. You've got camping, Canyon Breeze Golf Course, Crusher and the Tushers Beaver Territorial Courthouse, snowmobiling, renewable energy, Pioneer Car Show, Squeaky Cheese, ghost towns to explore, best water in the country, Paiute ATV trails, Old Frisco Kilns, horse races, hunting, fishing, and it's a good place to live. Beaver County, mountains of fun. I could tell you more, but why don't you come and see it for yourself?
Kanab, base camp for your southern Utah adventures. You belong in Kanab.
Welcome back to the county seat. Our conversation today is about grazing on the Grand Staircase. We kind of looked at the different perspectives of going through the process of coming up with a grazing plan. We've got a little bit of background on it. These kinds of plans, whether they've been travel plans, resource management plans, they've had a process in the past, but you guys are doing something a little bit different this time. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely, and it gets back to the uniqueness of the monument and the landscape that we get to help manage. When we set out to do this, we understood a lot of the issues and a lot of the the camps, if you will, pro-livestock grazing, anti-livestock grazing. When we stepped out to take a planning level look at the use on the staircase, we knew we'd want to hear from all the voices that were involved in the discussion. Seeking that common ground, seeking that that input from folks is critical to getting a resilient decision, something that is going to be defensible, and then also something that ultimately is going to end up for better management of resources on the ground. and ultimately we hope we have improved relationships between everyone who's involved with, if we want to call them our stakeholders on the monument.
So this interim comment period, I mean, you basically have added a comment period to the entire process.
We've been very proactive and have added comment periods. We've worked directly in our cooperating agency meetings. We have monthly cooperating agency meetings. That's what the state, local, federal agencies involved in this process. We also have added, as you pointed out, a comment period for these preliminary alternatives right now. We feel that it's important to keep going back and keep that dialogue with the public and keep people informed so that there are no surprises and that people have an opportunity to share their opinion and their information with BLM.
Okay, Dale, this looks different to you even though it's a different process. What are your comments about how they're handling it this time?
You know, my fear is, regardless of what we do, they're going to get sued. Some environmental group's going to sue because you know they can get money from the government to sue the government, so it don't cost them a thing. And the process, I'm just skeptical because I've come out a loser too many times. And I can sit down with Dave, and Dave and I can get along, but it's the other factors that's out there, the environmental groups. And I'm not just picking on the Grand Canyon Trust. There's several of them out there. We won't have to name them, but it's probably good because the public is seeing what's going on, and I hope it works. But I'm real skeptical of it.
Because this is just one element, I know there's been some talk of people saying, well, we should have really gone in and redone the whole management plan for the entire monument, not just selected out grazing. You know, any thoughts on that?
I think there's some truth to having to, grazing impacts all kinds of things like recreation, wildlife. One of the big things is wildlife. You can't really change the grazing plan without setting new goals for wildlife. So you've got to change a few things maybe in the management plan, but only those things that are really impacted by grazing. I think the management plan is a really good document already, so I don't think we need to crack it open and come out with a whole new management plan. But I also, I'll reiterate that they've done a great job. It's important for the public to be involved here because grazing impacts so many things on the monument and values on the monument. So I think they're doing a great job, and we need to continue down this road for the monument. Since it is the science monument and it was established for that reason, we need to keep on the path that we're on.
There's sometimes a thought, and I need a very short answer, and there's sometimes thoughts that making comments is so complicated and the parameters of what is acceptable as a comment is so narrow that a lot of people don't rise to that challenge. Are you addressing that in this process, Matt?
Yeah. Through a variety of manners. First is we provided some information on how to make what would be considered a substantive comment, something that would be useful to BLM. Opinions, we listen to opinions, but if you can have some meat and some science and a location on where maybe an issue or conflict is occurring, those are more valuable and helps us come down with better decisions.
But everything does help move the needle one way or the other.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. We got to take a quick break. We'll be back with the county seat in just a minute. We'll continue our conversation on grazing.
I lived in Phoenix and then down in Orange County in California, and I met a small town girl and she brought me home. Just the smaller community that makes you feel like when you go somewhere you know everybody. The sporting programs, the dance events, all these kinds of things, you run into people you know and that care about you and your family. And that makes it just a wonderful place to have little ones like this.
Isn't it time you found the balance you've been looking for? Uinta County, Utah.
Place that is beyond words, there is nothing to be said, except take your time in Bryce Canyon country.
I'm a Utah's own dairy producer. I care about the health of my animals, and I care about the quality of food we produce.
Because when it comes to providing quality dairy products,
I understand the importance of Utah grown and raised.
And the jobs we enjoy are vital.
because Utah's Own supports our communities.
As a consumer, I look for Utah's Own products because Utah's Own is good for me and it's good for Utah.
Keeping it here at home, Utah's Own.
I let me be me. Oh, you know that I'm finally free. You know that let me be me. You know that I'm finally free to be me.
Welcome back to the county seat. Our discussion today has been about grazing. We're probably not going to get all the points covered in this half hour. We may provide an opportunity for you to get some more conversation on this. Del, your last thoughts.
I feel like the old American Indian. We're just getting pushed and pushed and pushed. And 90% of the cowboys out there, 99%, are good cowboys. They're stewards of the land. And I feel that we keep getting shoved further and further back. And I think most of the cowboys is the real environmentalist. I've been out there all my life. I've been ranching now for 40 years. And I feel I'm the real environmentalist. And sometimes I feel environmental groups follow the dollar. They are more interested in the money coming in than what's really happening out there. So I feel the cowboys and the people that grew up around this area is the real environmentalists. Because I look at my outfit, it's a better outfit than when I got it. And I've just been squows and squows. I can go way back to the Capitol Reef. I had a permit there and lost it. And it got so bad in the river, I finally traded out the Grand Canyon Trust. But we just keep getting shoved further and further back, and I just feel like the old American Indian.
Dave, your final comments.
Yeah, I think, this is, the Grand Staircase is a test piece for the BLM. It's a very special place to all Americans from Alaska to Florida. I think it's real important that we get a lot of public discussion around this. It's a good process. I think, a few of the things that the BLM really needs to pay attention to are, other indicators of land health in this process, not just grass utilization and annual plans and annual decisions. And so looking at different things out there, because it's a hot, dry desert landscape, and grazing is difficult out there. And so we need to look at, species diversity and soil crust and things like that. And bring everybody in, multiple stakeholders, and get experimental grazing going on the Grand Staircase, so we can understand the best way to graze with changing climates and everything that comes along with that, and drought. And
okay, you get the last few seconds to wrap things up.
Okay, with just a few seconds, I would recommend to everyone, please come to Grand Staircase and take a look at this amazing landscape we have out there. It was one of the last places in the continental U.S. to get mapped. And I would offer an invitation to everyone to come and see it for yourself.
Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for joining us. Remember, local government is where your life happens. It's important that you, your friends, and your neighbors become part of the process of governance by being informed. We'll look for you next week on the county seat. Be sure to check out our website, and you can get to our social media from there. We would love to have your interaction on this. We'll talk to you later, and see you next week on the county seat. If you like this video, then we invite you to subscribe to our channel, The County Seat. You can do that here. And we invite you to share with your friends. We also invite you to get all the latest up-to-date information by following us on our social media channels. And if all else fails, make sure that you watch The County Seat Sunday morning at 8:30 right here on ABC4 Utah.